Dr. Kazem Kazerounian is my guest today. Professor, thanks for being with me.
My pleasure.
You know, when I was a kid, I grew up in a predominantly Irish area, and the Irish very much took care of each other. They worried about the same things. They took care of the same things. And I see that in the Iranian American experience, that the Iranian American community watches out for each other. You signed a letter along with 100 other high-profile Iranian Americans, people that are at the top of their profession. And we've delivered this, I understand, to President Trump. Explain to me first your background, and then let's talk about what the letter says.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. I actually have been in academia all my life. Now, probably starting from when I was first 1 year old, then I was put in a daycare, and then I've been in the school environments all along. I've been at the University of Connecticut now for 40 years, and currently a professor of mechanical engineering. I just finished 3 terms as the Dean of College of Engineering, where I worked with my wonderful 200 faculty members in the college. And there's a long story of all the things that collectively we have achieved. But then I also take pride in being an Iranian American. In the latest letter that you referred to, a letter is signed by 100 of my colleagues, professionals, professors, doctors, lawyers. And in this letter, we basically, again, indicated that the current regime in Iran is not a representative of people, is not a government by the people, for the people. And at the same time, we also talked about that this regime is probably in the last stages of its life. This regime is about to change. And at the time that the signs of weakness, the stress signs are coming from all over this regime, there are numerous opportunistic forces here and there from within Iran, individuals or some of them collectively, that are claiming to be opposition leaders or part of the opposition. They are not.
And we'll talk in more depth on that. Let me read you one little piece from the statement that went to the president. It said, and I quote, "We also call for a principled and informed U.S. policy toward Iran, one that aligns with the aspirations of the Iranian people for freedom, justice, and self-determination." My question is, what do you expect from the Trump administration? What do you expect the United States to do in this instance?
Let me start by telling you that what the Iranian resistance does not expect. We do not expect foreign forces on the ground, foreign boots on the ground. We do not expect money. We do not expect arms. We expect an informed policy, a principled policy, as the letter says, and that is recognition of the fact that I mentioned, that this regime needs to go. This regime is not a regime that represents the Iranian people. The dictatorship in Iran needs to go. The Iranian people deserve democracy, deserve freedom. And above all, we are asking the world, the United States and the rest of the civilized world, to recognize the right of the Iranians to resist.
And you say in here, the movement for change is powered by the Iranian people and this organized resistance. You talk about a movement. What movement? What is that movement on the ground in Iran?
Currently, there is a coalition of several organizations and numerous renowned individuals, around 500 in a forum that we call National Council of Resistance of Iran. The pillar of National Council of Resistance of Iran, or NCRI, is MEK, People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran. And this is the plans, the detailed plans of what this organization, this National Council of Resistance, plans for the future of Iran and plans for the transition period to a democratic, secular, non-nuclear Republic of Iran.
You made 2 points there that are important. You said we're not looking for boots on the ground. You're not looking for military. And you're also not asking for money. I have heard there are some people asking for money there. Who is it? If it's not NCRI that's asking the United States for financial support, who is it that's doing that?
For the past 45 years that I've known this organization, I have never seen this organization reaching out to anyone other than the Iranian people. No country, no outside organization for funding. This organization is self-sustained and relies only on the support of the Iranian people. However, I think that that is a really good test for all the other people that claim to be opposition group. Where is your funding is coming from? And how do you plan to topple the Iranian regime?
You're very careful, not only in this letter, but in general terms, talking about not being tethered to the past. You're looking forward. You're looking in what direction you're going. And you don't want to be tied to any dictatorship, whether that's the Shah or whether that's the Ayatollah. To me, it's interesting that you tie those two together, because the ideologies of the Shah and those that were supportive of the Shah and the ideologies of the mullahs are very different, and yet you treat them very much the same in your concern. Why is that?
So if you actually examine this systematically and academically, you would see that we have the current regime in Iran and we have the mess in Middle East because we had Shah. Because under Shah's regime, and I was a university student in the university, and I remember so many occasions that you would sit in the classroom with your other classmates, and Sawak, the Shah's secret police, would raid the classrooms and would take away some of your classmates, and you would never see them again. That lack of freedom, that lack of thinking, and at the same time, Shah's regime aligned itself with the corrupt clerical establishment in the country at the time, thinking that if they have them, they have the rest of the country. So they aligned themselves and they nurtured them to be the evil force that they are right now. So we have the current regime because we had Shah. The Iranian people have said no to both of them. There was a revolution against Shah. It was a very massive popular revolution. It ousted Shah, and Iranian people would never ever want to go back. Actually, I don't see any country that wants to ever go back to bringing royalty after bringing a royal family after they have kicked them out.
Interesting when you say family, because Reza Pahlavi is the son of the Shah, and he pops up from time to time. When we hear about, okay, you mentioned at the very beginning that the current regime is in a weakened state, there may be a change. Is he a viable alternative in the year 2025?
So probably when you listen to him, the first thing that one walks away with is confusion, because he says that I'm not interested in the position, but choose me. Believe me, he actually puts both of them in two sentences right next to each other. Choose me as your leader, choose me as your king or whatever. People around him argue the chants that he is the God of every Iranian, and he smiles at that and he waves hand at that slogan. But at the same time, he says that I'm fighting the Iranian regime, but I'm quoting him now exactly and directly. I being Reza Pahlavi, says that I rely on the same IRGC, the same Iranian Revolutionary Guards and Basijis and other armed forces. They have a key role in the future of Iran. And how can you be fighting them while you're promising them that there is a future for you, and actually a prosperous future for you in the next regime?
I was just reading that, the connection between the Shah and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And I'm thinking, this seems contrary. If he's saying one thing and still has this relationship, those seem contrary. Is it an accurate portrayal that he has an existing relationship?
He has an existing relationship. He actually takes pride in it, and he repeats that he has that relationship. He says that in a way that comes across as I'm connected and therefore I'm powerful, because he does not have any independent forces of his own or any people or any group that follows him. His career, he has never had a career. He has never built anything. He has never formed any organization. And the only times that we talked about his finances, a couple of years ago when we were dealing with the major uprising in Iran, he formed some funds to help the retired and laid off people in Iran, the workers in Iran, and those funds disappeared. So that is probably goes at the top of his transcript among his achievements. Whether his corrupt family and the corruption in his family is well known, because they walked out of Iran 50 years ago with billions, with hundreds of billions. Actually, the actual number that I've heard is about $60 billion. They walked away with that money. So the corruption starts there.
And I'm getting a sense here how you feel about the Shah and the Shah's family, but in the statement that you just passed on to the President of the United States, you talk about how the Shah and the family have been divisive to the nation and to the people. Explain that, because it's a pretty strong word.
Right now, Iranian regime supports Reza Pahlavi as to play the role of opposition. And actually, it's very smart of the Iranian regime to do that, because first they know that it is not a real threat to them. And they know that he's close to revolutionary guards and other armed forces in Iran. And therefore, there is no way that he can actually ever be a threat to them. However, by creating that smoke screen, they detract the attention from the real opposition groups, and that buys them time. Actually, if one examines what happened 2-3 years ago, Reza Pahlavi played a critical role in creating confusion among the Iranians and in diaspora or inside Iran, as there is whether there is a strong alternative to the current regime, and how basically the opposition comes together. He basically created so much confusion, and to a large extent, I would say that he's one reason that particular uprising 2 years ago, 3 years ago, did not elevate beyond what it was.
So if you're saying no to the Shah's family, and you're saying no to the Ayatollahs, what's the alternative?
National Council of Resistance of Iran, with Mrs. Maryam Rajavi as the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance, MEK as the pillar, as the main, one of the critical pillars of this, as the force of change. It is an alternative that has a plan, a 10-point plan is generally known as the 10-point plan of Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, and at the same time a very clear plan for transitional government to a future Iran.
One of the challenges here in the United States, but all over the West, is understanding the cultural differences. And in the Middle East, there are differences very clear with how things are here. I'm not sure policymakers here always understand that, and sometimes they put forth policy that may not be a fit for the culture. We saw that in Iraq. However, the 10-point plan you mentioned that has been put forth by Maryam Rajavi was approved by more than a majority of the House of Representatives here a year ago, 2 years ago. And so I see something that is aligned there. Mm-hmm. If there's a regime change, how much momentum, how much support do you think is realistic from members of the United States government, not just the administration, but throughout the entire government?
To actually think about the 10-point plan, and examine every single point of it, and also the transition plan for a future Iran. When we talk about democracy, when we talk about a republic, democratic republic form of government, when we talk about a secular government, when the plan talks about a free market Iran, when the plan talks about a non-nuclear Iran, when the plan talks about freedom of women, freedom of religion, freedom of political activities, freedom for people to choose what they want to wear, what they want to eat, what they want to talk about. So all of those are points that I would argue resonates with any reasonable person, and in particular any reasonable person who has tasted democracy in the West. These are so clear and so clearly speak for themselves that I can't see why it would not have very broad support among politicians and among people in the world. So that the challenge is to see the path to implement that plan. And this is where people like Reza Pahlavi's mission is to create that challenge and that smoke screen so that that path, which is, to me, is very clearly NCRI and People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, to create the smoke screen so that that path is not clear to the West.
Final question, and that is, how likely do you think regime change is in the short term?
So we can always hope. And the regime has never been as weak as it is right now. Internally, the regime has lost a lot of support among people. The economy is a disaster. There's a lot of faction inside Iran that are fighting each other on a daily basis. They're undermining each other. The power of the supreme leader has diminished drastically, and especially as he's very close to his deathbed. The replacement has created a huge challenge for him. He's trying to probably groom his son to be in his place, and that also has created a lot of problem. So this is on one side, and the other side is that the regime, as the head of the snake, is losing its arms in the region. So the regime has always been sustained on two pillars: terrorism outside Iran and terror inside Iran. He's losing all of its powers and all of his proxy forces outside Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen, Houthis, and other parts. And at the same time, we talked about internally, he's using his grip on the power. So I would say that we are closer than ever, and we are very, very close. We expect, as the leader of the Iranian resistance has repeatedly said, that next few months are going to be extremely critical in the future of Iran.
Professor, thanks for taking the time.
Oh, it was wonderful to be with you.